Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Take a moment and just think about how much information you scrolled past this morning. Just picking up your phone,
Hmm.
whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Um, our brains are constantly sifting through this, well, fire hose of updates, news, stories, opinions.
It's a lot.
And let's be honest, figuring out what's actually true in that flood,
Yeah.
it's exhausting.
It really is. And when that information touches on institutions like the church, things can get complicated, well, fast. Online news about religious communities can spread like wildfire,
Right.
sometimes with real and pretty significant consequences that go far beyond the screen.
Exactly. So today we're taking a deep dive into a stack of sources about fake news and the church's social role.
Okay.
We're going to unpack what makes misinformation spread so effectively online, how it's specifically impacting religious institutions, and maybe most importantly, what can actually be done about it.
Good.
Think of this as your shortcut to understanding a really critical challenge in, well, the digital age.
It's a vital conversation because, the stakes are high. We're looking at findings from studies, surveys, real-world examples to really get a handle on the landscape.
All right, let's dive right into the heart of the problem then. Why does fake news, especially the kind that targets institutions, seem to have like rocket boosters attached?
Ah, yeah.
Our sources point to a truly striking piece of data from a 2018 MIT study.
Yes, and what that study revealed is pretty astounding, actually. It found that fake news travels, get this, 6 times faster than real news online.
6 times faster.
Uh.
Just, wow. Processing that number. Why? Why are lies and distortions so much more viral than, the truth?
Well, the source material gets into some fascinating psychological reasons here.
Good.
It really raises an important question about maybe human nature in this digital age. One major factor is something called confirmation bias.
Ah, yes.
We are sort of hardwired to some extent to seek out and believe information that already confirms what we think we know, or maybe what we want to be true.
Right. It feels good to be validated.
Exactly. So if a piece of fake news aligns with our existing beliefs or biases, we're far less likely to question it. We're actually more likely, the study found, about 70% more likely to share that fake information.
So it's not just that we believe it, we actively push it out there because it feels, well, comfortable and validating.
Precisely.
And social media platforms aren't exactly helping, are they? The sources talk about filter bubbles.
No, they're not helping much in that regard. Social media algorithms, they're designed to keep you engaged.
Keep you scrolling.
Right. By showing you content similar to what you've liked or clicked on before. This creates these, filter bubbles or echo chambers.
Mm-hmm.
And within these bubbles, you're primarily exposed to viewpoints that already line up with your own.
Which means if fake news gets into that bubble, there's nothing really challenging it.
Exactly. There's very little friction. It just reinforces that confirmation bias we talked about.
Huh.
So you have this kind of perfect storm, content designed to tap into our biases, delivered by platforms that sort of isolate us within like-minded views. And the result is information, especially sensational or negative stuff, spreading at an incredible, almost unstoppable speed.
It's a powerful engine for misinformation. Okay, so we understand how it spreads like wildfire. But what are the actual tangible impacts of this phenomenon, particularly on the church?
Yeah, the sources provide some pretty clear data on this.
Okay.
We do. A 2022 Korean Gallup survey highlighted in the material offers a really stark illustration. It found that roughly 40% of respondents said negative church-related news they saw on social media directly influenced their perception of religion, like in general.
40%. That's a significant chunk of the population whose views are being shaped or maybe distorted by what they just happen to see online.
It is. And what's fascinating, or maybe concerning here, is how this impact is disproportionately felt among younger generations.
Oh, how so?
Well, the survey found that over half, so more than 50% of those in their 20s and 30s, reported that social media information affected their trust in religious institutions.
Wow. Over half.
Yeah. And that's a demographic churches are often really striving to connect with.
So the digital information space is actively eroding trust for a crucial future generation. Can we look at some specific examples from the sources? Because sometimes it's hard to really grasp the damage until you see a concrete case.
Absolutely. Let's think back to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020.
Okay.
The sources describe how minor, often isolated violations of public health guidelines by just a few churches were frequently amplified and, frankly, exaggerated online.
Right, blown way out of proportion.
Exactly. And this led to widespread social criticism directed not just at those few churches, but at the entire church community.
So the actions of a few became like a weapon against the many.
That's a good way to put it. And it actually got worse. Baseless rumors, things completely fabricated, started circulating rapidly on social media.
Like what?
Well, things like claims that a specific church intentionally spread the virus. Just pure fiction, but it gained terrifying traction online.
Good grief. Pure fiction causing real-world panic and prejudice. There's also an overseas example the sources mention, right? A U.S. case that shows how easily something can be completely twisted.
Yes, this one is particularly frustrating. A church in the U.S. was doing community service, helping people out.
Okay, sounds good.
But an edited video was put online, and it circulated globally, claiming the church was actually driving out homeless people.
No. The opposite of what they were doing.
Exactly. An act of goodwill was deliberately misrepresented as cruelty, and then it just went viral, seen by millions.
That is incredibly damaging. It just undermines the very positive work churches are trying to do. What does this constant barrage of negative or just plain fake information do to the church's standing in the long term?
Well, the sources indicate a measurable decline in social trustworthiness. A 2023 survey by the Korean Society for Religion and Society showed public trust in religious institutions decreased by about 15% over the last decade.
15% loss in 10 years. That's a real shift.
It is, and the so what of that decline is pretty significant. When trust erodes, it really hinders the church's ability to effectively engage in its core social roles.
Like what?
Things like providing community support, running social services, just generally being a positive force in society. People are simply less likely to accept help from or partner with an institution they don't trust.
It makes perfect sense. If you don't trust the source, you're less likely to accept the service, right?
Exactly.
This leads to maybe a deeper question. Why is the church perhaps more vulnerable to this kind of thing than maybe other institutions? Is there something specific about its nature?
That's a really important question. Society often places, very high moral expectations on churches and their leaders.
Right, they're held to a higher standard often.
Yeah, precisely. And because of this elevated standard, even relatively small accusations or, fabricated doubts can carry disproportionate weight. They can impact public perception much more severely than they might for a different type of organization.
Ah, okay. So the higher the pedestal, maybe the easier it is to knock it down with a well-placed lie.
There's definitely an element of that. And furthermore, the church is built fundamentally on trust, right?
Yes.
Trust in shared beliefs, trust among members, trust in leadership. When fake news attacks these elements, it can be particularly corrosive.
It strikes right at the core.
It really does. It strikes at the foundation of the community itself, sowing internal doubt just as effectively as it sows external suspicion. It kind of exploits the very bonds that make the church strong in the first place.
That insight is critical. It's not just about the external perception, it's the internal fabric that's being targeted. Okay, this sounds like a really formidable challenge, but the sources don't just stop there, do they? They offer constructive, proactive ways the church can respond. It's not just about being a target.
No, exactly. And what's fascinating here is the shift from a purely defensive posture to one of active engagement and, responsibility.
Okay.
The core strategies mentioned revolve around enhanced transparency and communication.
Okay, let's unpack that. Transparency and communication. How does an institution like the church implement that effectively when facing all this misinformation?
Well, it means being open and proactive about it, actively publicizing church activities, community service projects, major decisions, maybe even finances.
Really? Finances too?
Yes. The sources give a successful U.S. church example where they actually saw increased trust simply by posting monthly financial reports online and being really open about key decisions. It's about building confidence through that openness.
That's a concrete, actionable step. What else do the sources suggest? Is there more?
Oh, yes. A crucial strategy is media literacy education for church members themselves.
Ah, interesting.
In an age where anyone can share anything, it's vital to equip people with the skills to actually discern credible information from misinformation.
So teaching members how to be critical consumers of information, how to spot maybe a fake headline or a dubious source.
Precisely that. The sources talk about programs that focus on digital citizenship,
Digital citizenship.
Yeah, it's more than just being careful. It's about understanding your role in the whole information ecosystem. It's about not just being a passive recipient, but an active, critical participant who understands the impact of hitting share on something that hasn't been verified.
Digital citizenship.
Mm-mm.
I like that framing. It implies, well, responsibility.
It does.
And the third key strategy mentioned.
Moving beyond just reacting to negative stories, always playing defense and actively creating positive content.
Going on the offense, sort of.
Kind of. Instead of solely focusing on fact-checking or writing rebuttals, proactively tell the positive story of what the church is actually doing.
Showcase the good work, basically. Put that front and center.
Exactly. Produce videos or stories about community service, local impact, or how the church is addressing real problems in the community.
Yeah.
The sources share a really compelling Korean example. A church that started posting weekly YouTube videos just documenting their volunteer work. They were providing side dishes for elderly individuals living alone.
That's very specific and sounds really impactful.
It is. And it wasn't, directly combating a specific fake news story at that moment, but by consistently and transparently showing their positive contribution, they built a strong counter-narrative.
Yeah.
It helped improve public perception over time.
Right.
It's about building a positive, authentic digital presence.
That's a powerful pivot, shifting from defense to proactive storytelling.
Yeah.
This connects to a broader theme the sources touch on too, doesn't it? About the church's social responsibility and its role in this digital age.
Yes, and what's fascinating here is the idea of the church seeing itself not just as a potential victim of social problems like misinformation,
Right.
but as an active agent in actually helping to solve them.
So applying that to fake news specifically, what does that look like in practice?
Well, it could mean churches participating in broader community efforts like fact-checking initiatives or maybe extending media literacy education programs beyond just their own members to the wider public.
Oh, interesting.
The sources mention a German church, for example, that collaborated with local media outlets on media literacy initiatives for the whole community.
Wow.
It's about leveraging their often trusted position in the community for a wider benefit, helping everyone navigate this stuff.
That's a profound idea, the church helping the whole community navigate the information chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one more element to this proactive role?
Yes, and it's crucial. Solidarity and cooperation among churches.
Okay.
When one church is targeted by fake news, other churches can step up, help verify the facts, and work together to disseminate accurate information.
So not leaving a targeted church to kind of fight that battle alone.
Exactly right. This collective response strengthens not just the individual church under attack, but it builds the credibility and resilience of the entire religious community. It shows unity and a shared commitment to truth.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive. I mean, it's clear that fake news isn't just some abstract problem online. It's a serious challenge with really tangible impacts on the church's ability to function and, well, contribute to society.
Absolutely. The erosion of trust is a significant consequence, and it affects everything from public perception right down to their capacity for service delivery.
But what really stands out from the sources, I think, is that they frame this challenge not just as a threat, but actually as an opportunity. An opportunity for churches to become more transparent, maybe more proactive, and more deeply engaged with the digital world.
Exactly. By embracing strategies like, radical transparency, empowering their members with media literacy, creating authentic, positive content, and collaborating across denominations, churches can build resilience.
And maybe even emerge stronger.
And potentially emerge with greater trust in the long run. It's possible.
It's a shift, isn't it?
Yeah.
From being reactive to actively shaping the information landscape around them, and maybe even helping their communities do the same. The church's role in navigating the complexities of the digital age feels, well, more important than ever. The hope drawing from these sources is that they can become even more transparent, more trusted, and ultimately more effective contributors to society by addressing this head-on.
It's a significant task, no doubt, but it seems achievable through deliberate action and that kind of collaborative spirit.
And for you, our listener, encountering that flood of information every single day. Maybe this deep dive encourages you to just pause for a moment before you share something. To consider the source, maybe check the facts, especially if it taps into something you already believe pretty deeply. Refraining from carelessly amplifying unverified claims is a small but, well, a powerful act of digital citizenship that really benefits us all.
It truly is a shared responsibility, seeking and sharing truth.
So let me leave you with this final thought, something to consider based on our sources today. How can the significant challenge posed by fake news actually become the very catalyst that forces the church, and perhaps other institutions too, to innovate and build new pathways towards deeper, more resilient trust within society?
That's a provocative question for the future. Definitely something to chew on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you. It was a great conversation.